Hey everybody, welcome back to K-12 Analytics Engineering. I am Marcos L. Kozer, and today we'll be talking all about EdFi's Analytics Middle Tier. So in a previous video, we deployed the EdFi API, ODS, and admin app in Google Cloud. That sets us up to start receiving data from our SIS and our other EdTech vendors. A future video is going to talk about those integrations. Once the data lands in the ODS, it's in a highly normalized format that's great for that transactional kind of creating data, updating, and deleting, but it's not really ready for analytics. For analytics, we want that data to be denormalized into dimension and fact tables, and that's what the analytics middle tier does for us. It's a set of denormalized views that are built on top of the ODS. So today we're going to be jumping back into Google Cloud, and we're going to be installing those views on top of our ODS. Before we dive in, please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons below if you have not already so that you're notified of new videos as I put them out. Alright, so we're back in Google Cloud. We have our SQL instance that we deployed in our previous video, and we're going to be installing the analytics middle tier views on top of this ODS. So I'll give a quick plug to the analytics middle tier page on TechDocs. This goes into detail on deploying the analytics middle tier, actually using it. It explains the core collections and the use case specific ones. The first thing that we're going to do today together is we're going to download a release of the analytics middle tier. So if I jump over to GitHub, and all links to all of this are going to be in the show notes down below. I see there's a 251 release. I'm going to use this first one here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the link address. And then I'm going to go back over to Cloud Shell. Just a reminder, you get to this in Google Cloud Project by clicking on Activate Cloud Shell top right. So I'll go over to Cloud Shell, and we're going to run our first command where we actually download this release. So it's wget and then the URL, and that downloads the release. So the next thing we're going to do, if I clear this and I run ls, I see that that zip file is there. I am going to now unzip it. So unzip and then the file name -d, and this says unzip the files into a directory called AMT. So I run that unzips ls. I can now see AMT, and so I will cd into AMT and run ls-l, and that lists the files in a little tidier format. Alright, so before we actually run this, we actually need to run a chmod command to fix some permissions from unzipping to give us access to everything. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Great. So now we need to open up a tunnel similar to what we did when we were loading data into the ODS in the last video. We're going to run that command again. So the command is Google Cloud Proxy, and this creates a tunnel between your Cloud Shell and the Cloud SQL instance. It takes in the actual instance name of your Cloud SQL instance. You get that back in Google Cloud by going to SQL, by opening your Cloud SQL instance and scrolling down. You'll see a connection name there. So I will go ahead and open up that tunnel, and I'm just going to leave that open, and I'm going to click on plus and get a new terminal window. And so this is a new terminal window, so I do need to cd back into AMT. And then I'm going to run the actual command. So let's look at this command. The command is .NET because this uses .NET 3.1, and then it runs a DLL that's inside of the directory. It passes in a connection string with host as localhost. I can do that because of this Cloud SQL Proxy command. It says use port 5432, the default port for Postgres. It says to install the analytics middle tier on a database called EdFi ODS. Use a username Postgres, and then pass in a password. Now for the engine, we're using Postgres, so I've got that set here. And there are a bunch of options that I can put in here. So if we go back to TechDocs and I go to the AMT Deployment Guide and I scroll down, we are going to see here all currently available options. So we are using indexes today to improve AMT performance, and we are using the chronic absenteeism collection. I recommend you start with only a few, and then as you want to dive into more things like early warning, then you come back and you run this command again with additional collections. So let's go back to our Cloud Shell and actually run this. And there we go. So AMT finished installing. Now let's look at what actually happened on the ODS. Here we are connected to the ODS. I'm using DataGrip here. pgadmin is another great piece of software. If I expand the ODS, I can see a bunch of databases. We installed the analytics middle tier views on EdFi ODS, so I'll expand that. And we see our default schema that's always here called EdFi, and here we have all of the tables. Now we added a new schema called Analytics, and this contains the actual views. So if I expand this, we're going to see a bunch of dimension and facts. I will look at school first. And so if we look at school, we can see things like our school names, their school type, and as we scroll over, we can see other information. And if I go into another dim, let's do student school dim. We can see here that this creates the actual associations between the students and their schools, and this gives you some useful information such as their student ID, their name, when they enrolled, and in what grade level. So take some time and click through the different dimensions and facts, get to know them, focus on the core collection first before you move into things like chronic absenteeism or early warning. The next video is going to look at querying the ODS and the analytics middle tier views from BigQuery to actually bring that data into your data warehouse, and we'll start to get into DBT, a great application we're going to use to manage all that data in our warehouse.